Last night, I had a surreal experience. Come with me to a fine, beautiful home, well decorated from outside. By the time you walk in, you know you're going to meet Santa. And yes, me and my spouse, we walked in, and the home was full of parents and children, very anticipating. They were curious. They were waiting to see Santa. But unfortunately for us, when we got inside, Santa wasn't there. I wasn't wearing this red shirt. So certainly nobody stood up to me and called me Santa. Thank goodness. Hi, this is Gideon Fumukwai, the story warrior, coming to you live this evening from Rockwall, Texas. Rockwall, yes. Rockwall is a place with a name like that. And I don't know where you're joining us from: US, America, North America, South America, Africa, Europe. It doesn't matter where. I want us to talk about an issue that may be a little bit slippery. Talk about Santa, but in the context of culture. Oh, yes, Santa, culture, and the danger of one story. Oh, my goodness. So there we sat in watching the kids perform. Some were performing on their keyboards, somewhere with their French horns, somewhere with trumpets. It was an exhilarating moment. We soaked up every single minute of it. There were at least 20, 30 films or movies that were being made. Everybody had a camera on, sophisticated cameras, tiny little cell phones, you name it, we had it. We adored our children. And I bet you'll be asking, but who were these people? This was a predominantly African immigrant group. Professionals, doctors, nurses, IT specialists, you name it. Middle class, upper middle class. Some of them doing exceptionally well. Predominantly people of African descent who moved mainly from Africa to America in search of greener pastures, so to speak. And they choose to have this early Christmas experience with their children. A very fine one for that matter. But I'm telling you, everybody kept looking out. Each time the main door opened, everybody turned and looked. When is Santa coming in? When is Santa coming in? After performances for well over 30 minutes, finally, just when nobody expected, Santa walked in tall with red, furry attire, and he said, "Ho, ho, ho." Everybody it burst into laughter and cheering. The children were playing the drums, the harmonicas, the vuvuzelas. Everybody was crazy. Those that had traditional African instruments, they were up on it. Everybody was absolutely excited to see Santa. Even me with my tiny little harmonica went. I was excited because it was a moment we'd all been waiting for. I was curious. Is Santa going to smile with me? Is Santa going to give me a gift? All right, that's beside the point. But here's what happened. Santa, of course, was a tall white guy with a beard or mane, whatever you call that. And the children were ecstatic. And he went forth to distribute gifts to all the children. But I want you to take note of one thing. In that home, there were about easily over 60 to 70 African professionals, mostly middle class and upper middle class. There was one white guy who was married to, I believe, one of the ladies. Turns out Santa was the only white guy, but for the other gentleman in the room. And he did his job. We loved him. He went out. But on the drive home, something struck me. And the same thing struck my wife. Why was it a white Santa? Was there nobody in this city who could play the role of Santa who is black? Oh my goodness. Is there no black Santa in Dallas, Texas? Maybe there's none. We don't know. Maybe they've not gone to attend the school of Santa. Yes, there is a school to become a Santa. Maybe nobody's taken the time to go get the skills to be Santa and say, ho, ho, ho. I'm trying to have a little fun with this moment, but there's something more serious about it. How many times have you found a black Santa? In my lifetime, having spent quite a bit of time in America, although predominantly on the West Coast, I don't remember the number of times I've seen a black Santa, but I know there are black Santas out there. But the question I asked my wife was this by design that it had to be a white guy, or was it by omission? Or was it because the children that are raised here know the expectation of what Santa looks like? That it had to be a tall white guy with a big beard. What if Santa had showed up and was a black guy? What would have been the outcome? Would the children say jump up and explode with joy? Or would they be a little bit timid and withdrawn because they don't often see images of a black Santa? If you're a parent, I'd like for you to respond. If you have children, I want for you to respond. Have we been conditioned so much to think that Santa can only be somebody with white skin? Or could Santa, especially to the children, also be someone, maybe it's a Chinese guy, it's an Indian guy, it's a Native American guy, it's a black guy, it's a human. Doesn't matter their origin, whether it's black or brown. Think about it. And I want your comment here because there's some nuance here that borders on an element of what famous Nigerian American speaker Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie refers to as the danger of one story. The danger of one story. And the question is, was the choice of that Santa by design or by omission? The second question is, if it was by design, maybe there's some thinking that went into it. It was by omission. All right, I'm willing to give and take. But I found it interesting and I could not help but address it in a thoughtful and respectful way and encourage you to bring your thoughts. But there's also another element to it, and I see one of our listeners and observers and watchers has commented, Santa is called Father Christmas. Oh, yes. In Africa, where most of the parents of these young, curious minds grew up, Santa is not called Santa. It's called Father Christmas. Oh my goodness. Yes, we better teach our children that even though in the most of the West, Santa is called Santa, in Africa, most parts of West and Central Africa, it's called Father Christmas. But that got me thinking, what if we could trace the roots of Santa? What if we could trace the roots of Father Christmas? I know that culture is steeped in many omissions. It's steeped in many fabrications. Culture is complex. We don't make culture overnight. It takes time. But I'm fortunate that last year we went visiting Turkey. Did you know that the origin of modern day Santa lies in Turkey? Precisely in the state or the area known as Antalya. There's a city called Patara, where in AD, after the death of Christ, AD 280, there was a gentleman by name Saint Nicholas. Some say he was a bishop, some say he was a monk, but whichever was the case, when I got to Patara and observed his tomb, I was made to understand that he was a bishop. I saw the tomb of Father Nicholas or Saint Nicholas. I heard interesting stories about how he grew up, about how he prayed for people who were less advantaged, less privileged, and his miracles and all of that. And even an interesting factoid that he participated in the Council of Nicaea. If you're a Christian scholar, if you're somebody that cares about the origins of Christendom, go look at Council of Nicaea. It is said that he was at the Council of Nicaea, which laid the foundation to the Christian church as we know it today. Very interestingly, the interpreter told us right here, we don't know anything like Santa. But when this idea originated from here and got to the New World, America, know it all, it became known as Santa. I thought about it for quite some time. I said, the New World has an interesting way of making everything look fresh and original. And it sometimes makes it look like it originated from here. But no, Father Nicholas was not from the West. Father Nicholas is from Old Turkey, or what is called now Antalya. And I also saw, yeah, like I said, the tomb, and they said later on, the Italians stole his body, his remains, and took them to Italy. Now, that's a conversation for another day. It's not for today. We'll talk about it some other time. But back to what happened last night, it continued to bother me. Have some of our people been fed one narrative to the point that they no longer look outside the box? They no longer can think and realize that it could be a different narrative. I have no answer. But it really bothered me. And I didn't want to check with them because I don't want to embarrass anybody. I don't want to make it look weird. But as an interesting factoid, I want you to think about it. If you have predominantly 99.977% population who are Black, in their homeland, they celebrate Father Christmas and they're raising their children in the New World in America. Would you choose to bring a Black Santa, or would you choose to bring a white Santa or a brown Santa for that matter? That's a question that I want to invite all of you watching, listening, to share, to chime in, because this conversation is not good when it's one sided. This conversation is beautiful when there are more people commenting and talking about it. If you were organizing this occasion with over 60, 70 people, adults, you're raising your children in America, would you want a Santa that looks like them, or would you want a Santa that looks like the larger context of America? I know that's a difficult decision, and someone has to make it. I have nothing against Santa of any color, but it really struck me as there's something interesting here. The danger of one story, the danger of one narrative, when there's no counter narrative. You know what? When you continue to be fed one narrative, you think that the whole world is flat. Oh, yes, talking about the world is flat. I think that was one example of one, the whole world is flat. Is the world flat? Now you know where I'm going with this. I'll leave that for another day. I think it's time to start thinking through the narratives that have shaped us to be who we are. I think it's time for us to reconsider some of the origins of the stories that we tell our children. I think it's time to reclaim our narratives, to reclaim our humanity, to reclaim our common ancestry, and yes, common humanity. There's nothing wrong in having a Black Santa. There's nothing wrong in having a white Santa. As long as we have an understanding of the roots, we have an understanding of the cultural nuances and the dangers of one story. But then, this is not meant to stir up trouble, but just to let you think a little bit as you prep for Christmas. Are you talking to your children about Father Christmas? Are you talking to your children about Santa Claus? What are you talking to them about? And even if you talk to them about Santa Claus, make sure you also find time to talk to them about Father Christmas and the origins of that. And how that applies to the various cultural contexts in which they currently live or they intend to live in future. But we live in a global world just as much as the West celebrates Santa Claus. It's time to also let our children that there are others that celebrate Father Christmas. And yes, there's a whole lot more that is not about Father Christmas and Santa Claus, the color of their screen, the cultural context. But I want to just conclude by saying, me, I take interest in people of all backgrounds and I appreciate all of people that I meet. I see myself, story warrior, as a product of Africa, produced in Asia, packaged in America, distributed worldwide. Oh, yeah, worldwide, literally door to door, if you may. And so my summation of this observation yesterday was that when the context, when the context is right, the subtext will be right. However, if the context is wrong, the subtext would also be wrong. Thank you so much for checking this out. Share this with a friend and invite them to comment. And let's continue to stir up the pot every once in a while. But at the same time, while learning something profound that we can pass on to our children. Thank you so much. Story Warrior, checking out. Peace.